Namaste. Welcome to World Hindu News Hindu Talk Show. Today we have Professor Rajeev Srinivasan ji at World Hindu News Hindu Talk Show. He is an adjunct faculty at IIM Bangalore. He is member of National Think Tank on Intellectual Property by Government of India. He graduated in from IIT Madras in Bachelor of Technology and has an MBA from Stanford. He is a contemporary speaker, writer on general Indian politics, society, science, and likewise. Thank you, Professor Rajiv ji, for being with us at World Hindu News Hindu Talk Show.
Thank you very much. Delight to be here.
Thank you. My first question to you is Hindu organizations in general in America and worldwide, there is a scarcity in terms of good writers, authors, columnists as compared to Abrahamic faith aligned writers. One reason is institutions are less, media institutions to support them, but mentorship is also quite scarce. What is your viewpoint on this scarcity of Hindu writers, authors on contemporary Hindu topics?
Yeah, I don't think it's the case that there aren't any people with the talent. It is nourishing that talent that is the problem. So, for example, I'm a lot more familiar with what's happening in India now. If you look at the journalism schools, they're all run by Marxists and they're highly anti-Hindu,
Right.
So that's a problem. And also, if you look at the journalists, the practicing journalists,
Right.
most of them are anti-Hindu. So if you have a Hindu perspective, they're not going to support you. On the other hand, I believe that most editors can read the writing on the wall. They can see that this left-wing, sort of nasty left-wing perspective is on its way out.
Right.
And therefore, I think they would be willing to entertain young people who are not necessarily that far left.
Right.
Maybe a little bit more centrist, if not, obviously Indian.
Right.
So my suggestion to them would be, if you have the youngsters, that is, if you have the capability and you have the inclination, they should reach out. They should try, reaching out to a bunch of publications. And there are now a few strongly Hindu publications. One example I can give is India Facts.
Right.
It's a small operation, but they're nurturing some youngsters, and it's a very, very strong. There's an editor named
Sandeep Balakrishnan.
and he's a very strong person. He has
Yeah, I have
definitely
met
political
him.
views. You have met him, right?
Yes.
So I would suggest reach out to somebody like him. There are several others. There's Niti Central, where our friend Kanchan Gupta
Right.
was the head for a while, but a guy named Shashi Shekhar is there. But not only that, but even some of the more mainstream publications. Example would be Swarajya.
Right.
Swarajya is a print and web publication. And by the way, I think people should get into web media because that frees the editors from the constraints of time and space.
Right.
Because you can immediately publish it and you're not bothered about the number of words and so forth. So
Right.
they're more flexible.
Yes.
Whereas if it's a print thing, you're highly limited in what you can offer to youngsters. So the Swarajya is another, and Swarajya is interesting because it's sort of it's an economically right
Right.
and maybe liberal entity. It's not like something that you might consider a very far right wing.
Right.
But that's another
Right.
avenue. So there are a number of these, and I also think that maybe some of the others. I don't have personal knowledge of this, but there is an India Today thing called Daily O. Okay, and that I was just talking to David Frawley. Frawley writes for that,
Right.
and Minaz Merchant, who's a centrist in
Yes.
India, they all write for that. So my suggestion would be these people should reach out.
Yes.
And out of the many people who try, there will be a few who have the obvious talent and the capability and the analytical ability. And that, incidentally, is one of the things that I find is missing among many of the so-called, well-known journalists in India. Many of them don't have the intellect,
Right.
nor the analytic capability, or even maybe they have the language skills.
Yes.
But they're there not because of merit, but they are somebody.
Right.
It's a very nepotistic setup. But I think that will change over time as the media is getting more and more free in India and there's
Right.
more competition. The talent will rise. So I think the only answer that I can suggest, and this is true not only for journalists but also for fiction writers and so forth,
Right.
knock on doors. Even somebody as famous as, say, Amish Tripathi, I think he got rejected by 25 different publishers, and finally he found someone who,
Right.
and that's a story that everybody has heard many times. So, persistence. If you really think this is something you can do and want to do and will be good at, don't take no for an answer. Keep pursuing your vision.
Right.
The other reason, going back to your question, why there aren't so many, is because I think even today there is a stereotype among many Indians that they are scientifically oriented.
Right.
They are going to be doctors or engineers or maybe lawyers or something.
Right.
But not journalists or writers, because that's not somehow attractive.
That's correct.
It's not.
We'll just drop off somebody and then.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah. Oh, you stopped here.
He's come to pick up people.
That is okay. You continue. I will edit it. Yeah.
Yeah, so they have this self-image of being scientists, scientific and technical people, and therefore not very creative.
Right.
And this is true definitely in India. Most youngsters, even today, don't think of journalism or writing as a career, basically because they don't think it's lucrative.
Right.
Although that's not quite true. If you're a top editor, you can make an enormous amount of money.
Right.
Unfortunately, the way you make enormous amounts of money is not through proper means.
Right.
It is through corruption,
Yes.
right? And so there is a generally negative attitude among many students in India about these professions. That is changing, though. For example, unlike in the US, in India, law was not considered a great profession.
Right.
Right? If you couldn't get into engineering or medicine, you may go to
Right.
law. That's changing. And lawyers typically are people who are good at words.
Right.
Right? So people who go into law and the national law schools and so
Right.
forth today are doing very well. Those people may be good candidates to do part-time
Right.
writing, because they also see they're analytical by definition, and they see a lot of interesting constitutional or human rights or other kinds of
Right.
issues. For instance, I was just reminded of what we saw in this conference. There was Tapan Ghosh and
Right.
Satya
Dosapati, yep.
right? They're talking about things that are incredibly emotive,
Right.
Human trafficking, sex slavery,
Right.
things like that. And these are things that many young people would feel more strongly about,
Right.
So then, unlike in earlier days, the research is not that difficult. You go on the
Right.
net and do your due diligence,
Right.
and you're able to write something that makes sense with a different perspective,
Right.
So my overall suggestion is, don't think of yourselves as technical people. Don't think you have no creativity. For example, I teach a course on design thinking,
Right.
and that's intended to show that whoever you are,
Right.
you have the sparks of creativity in you. And we found this, at IIM Bangalore. My
Right.
class would be 75% engineers, but they're not uncreative.
Right.
They just tell themselves they're not creative, or given an opportunity, they are.
Right.
So I think no youngster who has an interest should determine that they are not creative,
Right.
because that's not true. They're not creative. They should just try,
Right.
and also be prepared for rejection.
Right.
That is a big problem. I have had
Yeah.
a number of rejections myself. I write to some journal, and they're like, "Sorry, you don't fit into our whatever."
Yeah.
So you gotta do that. But I think it's these two. Be determined to not take no for an answer.
Right.
Persist, and do something interesting. Think of your audience, right? For example, you have an audience in mind,
Right.
and these youngsters should have an audience in mind.
Right.
So, for example, if their audience is, say, the New York Times type people,
Right.
well, don't send an article like that to the Wall Street Journal. You
Right.
have to figure out who's going to be wanting
Right.
your stuff. So, I think these are common sense things to do, but the real point is persist.
Persistence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you will be rejected. There's
Right.
no question. Right?
Thank you,
Yeah.
Srinivasji, for that brief update on that. You said Indian platform, so newcomers, new people, young guys, authors, prospective authors, writers, they need to be persistent. They need to, communicate with the existing publishing houses, India Fact, Niti Central, Swaraj, and see if they publish it, write it, and talk to editor, take feedback. Likewise, they can update themselves.
Right.
Now, in Indian American population, you have been knowing that they're building, temples all over America,
Right.
and the social political space they have in the American political social system is not that strong as in the proportion to the,
Numbers, wealth.
finance numbers and why. What is the reason and what should be the direction, in your opinion, for Indian American community?
Yeah, as I was an Indian American for a long time, I think those of us who were born and brought up abroad fundamentally has a problem in navigating through American society. Now, that's not a problem for our second generation people who grew up here because they aren't actually American. So, for example, we don't have the inherent knowledge of how to relate to Americans in ways that make sense to them. For example, I had to learn what football was
Right.
when I came here. It didn't come to me naturally. So those youngsters who grow up here, who are well integrated, they need to then use that knowledge to go out and influence people.
Right.
For example, getting into politics, electoral politics, even at the local level, school, district
Right.
elections or whatever. And secondly, they need to be able to help their elders position the
Right.
Indian story appropriately to
Right.
the media, because the media here has got a very short attention span.
Yes.
Right. So they need what do you call them, sound bites.
Sound bites. Yep.
So tell our guys how to do sound bites, because our people, when they want to communicate something, they tend to be long-winded, wordy.
Right.
And secondly, we must realize that fundamentally this is an Abrahamic country.
Yes.
So Christian, Jewish, or even Muslim ideas are easy for them because
Yeah.
they're brought up with those.
Right.
Hindus they look upon as different.
Right.
With the profusion of gods
Yep.
and all these strange cultural
Right.
artifacts and so forth. But that needs to be looked at in terms of how you can turn that around and positively
Right.
position those, as Swami Vivekananda did so many years ago, right?
Right.
Coming in and saying, look, this is what we can bring to you. For example, the fact that Hinduism is so compatible with science. Right? This needs to be publicized.
Right.
People do not know that.
Yeah.
They think we're superstitious people, and they're all exposed to this cast cows curry
Right.
kind of a meme. So I think going out and engaging people in multiple forums, neighborhood associations, say for example you're in an apartment complex,
Right.
well, participate in the elections there.
Yep.
And also, I think a number of at least first generation Indians have a tendency to be cliquish.
Right.
They may not have non-Indian friends, or may not even have friends who speak a different language
Right.
from themselves. The Malayalis stick with the Malayalis, the Gujaratis. So getting out there and becoming a little bit more cosmopolitan, and also really understanding, what does it mean for Indians to participate in American electoral politics?
Right.
Because if I'm not mistaken, the majority of Indians here think they're liberal,
Right.
and therefore they have to vote Democratic.
Yep.
And I don't think that is true, right? Because most Indians, being upwardly mobile
Right.
people, inherently are Republicans, in my opinion, right?
Yep.
And yes, the Republicans have their fundamentalist Christians and so forth, but a lot of the other things that the Republicans believe, for example, the sanctity of the family, obedience to authority, things like that, are values that Indians, and especially in particular Hindus, also uphold.
Right.
So that's another thing I think people should look at. Don't think of the Republicans as the enemy,
Yes.
and the Democrats as our people. That I don't think that is in fact true,
Right.
because sitting in India and looking at America, I find that the Republicans actually are more helpful to India. Now, that
Right.
doesn't necessarily mean they're more helpful to Indian Americans, but Republicans realize that there is a huge tug of war happening in the world between
Yeah.
America and China, and they want India, and sort of by extension Indian
To come up,
Americans,
yeah.
to be on their side, right? So take advantage of that,
Yeah.
use that. So that's another mistake I think people make. The third is that, see, the dharmic religions and the dharmic civilizations of the East, if you look at Japan or Korea or China or Vietnam, Thailand, all those places have a lot in common with us.
Right.
Because I think the differences between Hinduism and Buddhism
Right.
are basically equal.
Yes.
The differences are less than the differences between Protestant and Catholic Christians, right? So reaching out to them as well, building coalitions, and not only with other dharmics, but also with others. For example, with Jews.
Yeah.
In this conference itself, we had a Jewish person speak, and the Jewish experience is something we can learn a lot from. I don't know if you're aware of this, but in the 1940s and 50s, there were signs in many hotels saying "No Jews and blacks allowed."
Right.
Right? And then they systematically positioned themselves in very focused areas. So, for example, in journalism or in medicine,
Yep.
or
in film industry, yep.
right? And they
Real
now
estate, yep.
dominate them.
Yes.
And Indians are beginning to do that in some areas,
Yeah.
like in the hotel industry.
Hotel industry, food industry,
Right.
yeah.
Hindus and Indians are doing that. So, following the examples of the Jews, and what I think, I was talking, I lived in California for a long time. A friend of mine is telling me that, there was a huge influx of Jewish entrepreneurs there, right? Including Israelis.
Right.
And he was saying, we need to build a lot of bridges today. Right? Because they are different.
Yes.
They don't have the same, WASP mentalities and so forth. So
Yep.
I think alliances, right? Not to say that there are permanent friends. We have permanent interests.
Yes.
And at the moment, their interests and ours coincide. So, being tactical thinkers. What is helpful for us today
Yep.
may not be helpful for us
Yep.
tomorrow. So that would be my suggestion. Reach out, because we have a tendency to be insular. We
Yep.
eat Indian food all the time, and we just go to temples. Why not go to a football game?
Yeah.
Right? Why not? I don't know. Go hang out with your WASP neighbors and go to the theater or
Yeah.
something. Right? So I think that's one of the things that is applicable to the first generation. Second generation, obviously, they don't have this as a problem. They know what to do. They're grown up in that. So I think the reason we have been building temples, I think, goes back to a very ancient, racial memory, which is that in India the temple is a center of all cultural and even economic activity.
Right.
So, for example, if you had a famine,
Right.
the famine relief would happen from the temple. So we kind of automatically donate to temples that way. But that role no longer exists with the temple. But maybe that can be created here.
Right.
The temple not only as a congregational space, but as a cultural
space
and an economic space and so forth. So that also broadens people. For instance, if you're able to bring people of other denominations.
Right.
I remember I went to Singapore last year, and there's this Hindu temple, and there are a lot of Chinese there.
Yep.
These Chinese are not Hindus.
Yep.
They just come and worship.
Yes.
They're Buddhists, right?
Yep.
So why aren't we encouraging Christian children, Jewish children, black children, adults, to come to our temples and explain to them, some of the principles, because some of our deities and principles are not obvious at first glance.
Yep.
Right? You have, let's say, Durga.
Right.
Durga, Kali can be quite frightening.
Yeah.
But if you explain what's behind Kali, right, then it's an insight for them. It's no longer no longer a primitive deity, but it's a very deep and important deity, also very feminist deity, right? Kali is superior. Right. Prakriti is superior to Purusha, right? That's a powerful statement to a person who's a feminist. Right. Yep. So I think a lot of what I'm trying to say is, yes, we must have temples, right? We need to preserve our traditions and so forth, but we must not stop at that. Because if we do that, we end up sort of being a religious ghetto. Right? But if we reach out in multiple ways, become true Americans without melting into the melting pot. Right? I think that's possible. You can retain your individuality, but at the same time function as fully American citizens. Right? So that's what I would suggest.